Putnam Berkeley Audio presents Seizure by Robin Cook. Read by Dylan Baker. Monday, February 22, 2001, was one of those surprisingly warm midwinter days that falsely prophesied the arrival of spring to the inhabitants of the Atlantic seaboard. The sun was bright all the way from Maine to the tip of the Florida Keys, providing a temperature variation astonishingly less than 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It was to be a normal, happy day for the vast majority of people living within this lengthy littoral, although for two exceptional individuals, it was to be the start of a series of events that would ultimately cause their lives to tragically intersect. 1:35 p.m., Cambridge, Massachusetts. Daniel Lowell looked up from the pink phone message he held in his hand. Two things made it unique. First, the caller was Dr. Heinrich Wertheim, chairman of the Department of Chemistry at Harvard, saying he wanted to see Dr. Lowell in his office, and second, the little box labeled urgent was marked with a bold X. Dr. Wertheim rarely mixed directly with the hoi polloi that included Daniel, even though Daniel was head of his own department, which came under Wertheim's authority. "Hey, Stephanie," Daniel called out across the lab. "Did you see this phone message on my desk? It's from the Emperor. He wants to see me in his office." Stephanie looked up from the dissecting stereo microscope she'd been using and glanced at Daniel. "That doesn't sound good." "You didn't say anything to him, did you?" "How would I have a chance to say anything to him? I've only seen him twice during my entire PhD travail, when I defended my dissertation and when he handed me my diploma." "He must have some idea about our plans," Daniel surmised. "I suppose it's not too surprising, considering all the people I've approached to be on our scientific advisory board." It was only a short walk from the lab to the building that housed the departmental administrative offices. Daniel knew he was facing a confrontation of sorts, but it didn't matter. In fact, he was looking forward to it. The departmental secretary motioned him to go directly into Wertheim's inner sanctum. Daniel found the aging Nobel laureate behind his antique desk. With his white hair and thin face, Wertheim appeared older than his purported 72 years. But his appearance did not diminish his commanding personality, which radiated from him like a magnetic field. "Please, sit down, Dr. Lowell," Wertheim said, regarding his visitor over the top of his wire-rimmed reading glasses. His voice had a trace of a German accent. Daniel did as he was told. He knew a faint, insouciant smile, which he was certain would not be missed by the department head, lingered on his face. Wertheim's faculties were as sharp as ever and attuned to any slight, and the fact that Daniel was supposed to kowtow to this dinosaur was part of what made him so certain of his decision to leave academia. Wertheim was still mired back in last century's inorganic synthetic chemistry. Organic chemistry, in the form of proteins and their respective genes, was the future of the field. It was Wertheim who broke the silence after the two men had eyed each other. "I gather from your expression that the rumors are true." "Could you be more specific?" Daniel responded. He wanted to be sure his suspicions were correct. He hadn't planned to make an announcement for another month. "You have been forming a scientific advisory board," Wertheim said. "An advisory board can mean only one thing. You're planning to tender your resignation, and you have, or you are about to found a company." "Guilty as accused," Daniel proclaimed. He couldn't keep his smile from expanding to a full grin. Wertheim's face had suffused to a deep red. "I personally went out on a limb when you were recruited," Wertheim snapped. "We even built the laboratory facility that you demanded." "I won't be taking the lab with me," Daniel responded. "Your flippancy is galling." "I could apologize, but it would be insincere." "Your leaving is going to put me in a difficult position with the president of the university," Wertheim said. "I'm sorry about that," Daniel said. I can say that in all sincerity, but this kind of bureaucratic shenanigans is part of the reason I'm not going to miss academia. What else? I'm tired of sacrificing my research time for teaching. You want to be a celebrity. I suppose that's one way to put it. And the money will be nice too. Why not? People with half my ability have done it. Would you like my opinion? Wertheim asked. I think I know what your opinion is. I think it's going to be a disaster for both of us, but mainly for you. Thank you for your words of encouragement, Daniel said. He stood up. See you around the campus. Then he walked out. 5:15 p.m., Washington, D.C. Thank y'all for coming to see me, Senator Ashley Butler said in his usual cordial Southern twang. With a smile plastered onto his doughy face, he glad-handed a group of eager-faced men and women who'd leapt to their feet the moment he burst into his small Senate office conference room, along with his chief of staff. The visitors were representatives of a small business organization from the senator's state capital who were lobbying for tax relief, or maybe it was insurance relief. The senator did not remember exactly, and it wasn't on his schedule as it should have been. He made a mental note to bring the lapse up with his office manager. I'm sorry I'm late coming in here, he continued after energetically pumping the last person's hand. I've been looking forward to meeting you folks, and I wanted to get in here sooner, but it's been one of those days. He rolled his eyes for emphasis. Unfortunately, because of another pressing engagement, I can't stay. In a chorus, the visitors thanked the senator for seeing them, especially in view of his demanding schedule. If the people were disappointed at the brevity of the meeting and the fact that they'd had to wait almost a half hour, they didn't show it in the slightest. It's my pleasure, Ashley gushed. We're here to serve. Spinning around, he turned to leave. As he reached the door, he waved. That was easy, Ashley murmured to Carol Manning, his long-term chief of staff, who'd followed from the conference room at her boss's heels. Leading the way, the senator strode down the long hall toward his private office. He glanced at his watch. It was 5:20 in the afternoon. I assume you remember where you are taking me now. Of course, Carol said. We're going back to Dr. Whitman's office. The senator shot a reproachful look in her direction while pressing his forefinger against his lips. That's hardly for general consumption, he whispered irritably. Without the slightest acknowledgement of his office manager, Dawn Shackleton, Ashley grabbed the papers she held up as he passed her desk and entered his private office. For the first time all day, he was alone. Instantaneous with the sudden tranquility, the anxiety he'd felt upon awakening that morning spread through him like a wildfire. He could feel it from the pit of his stomach to the tips of his fingers. He'd never liked going to the doctor. As he had gotten older, it was as if the mere act of going to the doctor increased his chances of having to face some horrible diagnosis like cancer, or worse yet, ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Ashley absently placed the papers onto his desk and stared off into the distance. He had begun to have some vague neurological symptoms a month or so earlier. At first, he had just dismissed them, attributing their appearance to the stress of his work or having drunk too much coffee or not having gotten a good night's sleep. The symptoms waxed and waned, but never went away. In fact, they slowly seemed to get worse. The most distressing symptom was the intermittent shaking of his left hand. On a few occasions, it had been necessary for him to hold it with his right hand to keep people from noticing. And then there was the feeling of sand in his eyes, making them water embarrassingly. And finally, there was an occasional sensation of stiffness that could make standing up and starting to walk a mental and physical effort. A week earlier, the problem had finally driven him to see the doctor, despite...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?